Welcome back to the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. Welcome to the live stream. It is currently 7:43 p.m. and of course, today's date is the 21st of May, 2025. The year is flying. Okay, so if you have New Year resolution that you haven't started working on, uh you might want to start right now because it's flying, ladies and gentlemen. Before you know it, summer is over. Before you know it, fall is here. And before you know it, another Christmas, another New Year. So take action. Take action right now. Start figuring out how to fulfill your promise to yourself that you made to yourself earlier this year. Okay? You were going to lose weight. Start losing weight right now. You were going to change your job and find a better job. Start looking for a better job right now. You were going to start your YouTube channel, or you were going to start streaming, or you were going to start whatever you wanted to try. Whatever you wanted to try, start trying it right now. Okay? Because the time is flying. Now, with that being said, the 45th, now the 47th President of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, participated in a bilateral meeting with South Africa President, and he got heated. Okay, he got heated, like everybody knew he would get heated because of the situation in South Africa with the white farmers and the migration of the white farmers into the United States. So definitely we have a lot to learn from this meeting, and hope you enjoy the show. Here we go.
Thank you very much, everyone. It's a great honor to be with the President of South Africa, President Ramaphosa, and he is a man who is certainly in some circles really respected, other circles a little bit less respected, like all of us, in all fairness, like all of us.
We all like that.
We also have a few of my friends. Ernie Els, a great golfer. He's a truly great golfer. Retief Goosen, who's an other really, we call him really a great golfer too, Ernie, right? You two guys are fantastic. And we could add Gary to the group, Gary Player. What a group of golfers South Africa's had on
Yes,
there.
yes.
There must be something in the water, right? It's
Yes.
something good. These two guys are
It's
unbelievable.
the water set.
And Gary's Gary. And David Frost, also another one that I
Yes.
know is such a great one.
Indeed.
Was he as good a putter as they say, David? He's a putter. He's a putting machine, right? But he's another one. So something very good about South African golf, and golf is still doing great in South Africa. And they have young players, I hear, coming up that are going to be very good. But it's an honor to have you here, and my friend, it's an honor to have you, one of the greatest businessmen in South Africa and long beyond. Thank you for being here. It's very, very great honor. Appreciate it. So we're going to be discussing certain things. As you know, we have the G20 is going to South Africa. When is that going to be?
In November.
In November.
Thereafter, I hand over to you. And
Yes, we have it next.
you originated the G20, so I'll hand over the baton to you,
right.
and then you lead the
That's
G20.
right. We're going to have
world.
it.
Yeah.
We're going to have it the following
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
So we'll be discussing many things, and some of the things you've been reading about in the papers
Yes.
and the media. And I would say that, look, the president is a truly respected man in many, many circles, and in some circles he's considered a little controversial. But we're going to be discussing some of the things that are taking place in South Africa and see if we can help. And we want to help. And we've had a long relationship with South Africa. I have, because indirectly I have so many friends that live there. I have a lot of friends. I mean, these are famous guys, but I have a lot of friends that live there that are tremendous people. And we'll be discussing that. We'll have a nice conversation. And I really appreciate that you guys came along. It really helps us in our thought process. But it is a great honor to have you, and I appreciate you called. He called. I don't know where he got my number, but I picked up. He said, "I want to come over and see you." That was my honor, and thank you very much for being here.
You're most welcome.
Thank you
Most
very
welcome.
much.
Well, thank you very much for welcoming us to this reformed White House. I've been here before, and it looks really fantastic. I must congratulate you.
Thank you.
But I also thank you for allowing our delegation. This is a very mixed delegation that you've got. We've got people from government, my ministers. I've got someone from the trade union movement who we really collaborate with, and from business as well, and our sporting legends. When I spoke to you, you said, yes, come along and bring Gary Player, bring any else, and Retief Goosen. I brought the two of them. Gary
what
Player,
happened to
I spoke to him, and he said, look, I'm getting rather on in my years, but wishes us luck in this discussion with you. So it's a real joy. And I'd also like to thank you for allowing your people to start discussions with us at the trade level. I mean, we are essentially here to reset the relationship between the United States and South Africa. We are long-standing partners in many, many ways. We've collaborated in many fields, in space issues, in energy, and in trade, and we therefore need to reset that, particularly in the light of some of the announcements that you made on trade and investment. So we want to advance more trade between the two of us, two countries, and our people now have been empowered by yourself and by myself to start engaging, and we hope that we will be able to fuel that engagement during our talks. And we also want to discuss issues that have to do with how we promote further investments in both countries. We've got about 22 companies from South Africa that have invested in the US. That's creating a number of jobs. And similarly, you've got almost 600 companies that have invested in South Africa, and some of them have been in South Africa for more than 100 years.
That's true.
So our links are really long-lasting, and we would like to recalibrate those relations between our two countries, Ukraine and in the Middle East. So we value that, and we are also a great contributor to peace processes that are going on around the world. And of course, we want to discuss how we can to fuel the growth of your own economy and reindustrialize. So we have that on offer, including rare earth minerals. So all that of opportunity and the products that we buy from you, as well as what we sell to you, I believe makes up a really good and powerful relationship, which we need to strengthen, which we need to engender. And that is really what has brought us here. And we are really privileged to have, great South Africans in the mix. As you said, you'd like to see them as well. And I brought you a really fantastic golf book. Weighs 14 kilograms.
Oh, that sounds good.
And it showcases the golf courses in our country. Johann Rupert wrote preface, so did Annie else. And I want to showcase our golf courses. You might remember when I spoke to you and we spoke about golf, you said I should start practicing. And I've started practicing, President, so I'm ready. But let me end just the introductory remarks by thanking you. You may not recall that 5 years ago I spoke to you during the COVID period.
Right.
And it was at a time when the whole world was going through a really cathartic moment.
Right.
And we asked for assistance, and you were able to assist us with respirators. Respirators, and you kept to your word, and you delivered respirators to us. We didn't have as many in our country, and it really helped to help us deal with COVID. So I'm here also to say thank you and to thank the people of America for having helped us during a really difficult time. Being the small economy that we are, we needed help from around the world. and you were there to provide that. So thank you very much.
I remember the call.
Yeah,
We
thank
sent
you.
150 respirators. We became the respirator king. We started making them. Nobody had them. We had
Yes.
very few of them.
That's right.
But they were very helpful. But we sent 150, and
Yeah.
and I appreciated the letter. You wrote me a letter. And
That's right. Yeah.
Thank
yeah.
I
Well,
appreciate
thank you
that very much.
Thank you very much for that. It really touched my heart after I spoke to you and you delivered. It's
a great honor.
Thank you very much indeed.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any questions, please?
Mr. President, you welcome white Afrikaner refugees here. Can you explain to Americans why it's appropriate to welcome white Afrikaners here when other refugees like Afghans, Venezuelans, Haitians have all had their protective status revoked?
Well, this is a group, NBC, that is truly fake news. They ask a lot of questions in a very pointed way. They're not questions, they're statements. We've had tremendous complaints about Africa, about other countries too, from people. They say there's a lot of bad things going on in Africa, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. When you say we don't take others, all you have to do is take a look at the southern border. We let 21 million people come through our border, totally unchecked, totally unvetted. They came from all over the world. In many cases, they're criminals. They come from prisons. They come from mental institutions. They come from street gangs. They're drug dealers. So don't say that we didn't take them. We're trying to get them out as fast as we can. And we're doing record business on that. And we just won a big case where we're allowed to send back hundreds of criminals to Venezuela. Just won that today in the Supreme Court. I'm happy to hear. But we do have a lot of people are very concerned with regard to South Africa, and that's really the purpose of the meeting, and we'll see how that turns out. But we have many people that feel they're being persecuted, and they're coming to the United States. So we take from many locations if we feel there's persecution or genocide going on. And we had a lot of people. I must tell you, Mr. President, we have had a tremendous number of people, especially since they've seen this. Generally, they're white farmers, and they're fleeing South Africa, and it's a very sad thing to see. But I hope we can have an explanation of that, because I know you don't want that. It's a kind of a different meeting. Normally, we have meetings, we talk about trade, and we'll be talking about trade and other things. But that certainly will be a subject that comes up. Yeah. Yes, please.
Yeah,
Brian?
Thank you very much. I'd like to get your thoughts on Letitia James. Director Polte, according to him, Letitia James says that the alleged mortgage fraud was simply a mistake. I want to get your thoughts on that. She put down that her father was her husband in order, and this is very similar to, I guess, the false attacks they had on you.
Well, I don't know what it is currently, but Letitia James, who's the Attorney General of New York State, it seemed, I'm not involved in that at all. I know that it's being handled by various groups, I guess, but it's major fraud, mortgage documents, and fraudulent everything. Yeah, I think she said the father was her husband, which she had to have a husband, or so she chose her father, and she put it down, and she had didn't she sign in Virginia, yet she said she lived in Virginia, yet she's the New York State Attorney General, and she did that for tax reasons, so she could take advantage of taxes. And she had the wrong number of units. She had a much different number, which wouldn't have allowed her to qualify and scam the government. So I don't know. I think she's very bad for New York, but I really don't know too much about it, but I appreciate the question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Mr. President, what's the benefit for you to be convinced that there's no genocide?
Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. So May 25th will be the celebration of Africa Day, which pretty much a lot of celebration will be taking place around the world, including here in the United States. What is your message to the entire African continent, African people, in this important occasion?
Well, I want to see peace, and I want to see happiness. I want to see health, and you have incredible land. There's tremendous value. A lot of countries don't have that value in the land, the value you have. We have a situation, I think you probably heard about it. We've done, through some very talented people, helped settle a war that's been raging for years, Rwanda and the Congo. And I think we've done it. believe it or not, I think we've done it. And could you just say a few words about that, my friend?
Yes, a couple of weeks ago we signed, the two parties signed a declaration of principles in which they've agreed on the way forward, and they have both submitted their draft peace agreements, and we have put together one that incorporates both of their suggestions, and we've given it to them. So we're in the process of finalizing this
Looking
peace
good,
agreement.
right?
Looking very good.
No, we have to thank you for even those efforts, because the African continent, particularly SADC, our Southern African Development Community, has for years been seeking to foster peace in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So all efforts, including those from outside the continent and inside the continent, are really worthwhile. We are removing our troops from there so that peace can then prevail in that whole area. And we hope that with the support of the international community, we will really have peace in that area. It's so vital, it's so important for the whole region.
Well, we sent our people there, and I think we did a very good job. I said it by my friend, and that was great. That was great. I mean, I'm just hearing phenomenal reports, because all I'm hearing is death, and they're chopping heads off, and it's horrible over there. And it was really brave of you to go there, and I really appreciate it. And it looks like we have something very, very substantial. We also talked about trade with them in terms of rare earth and all, but really more for it's like if you take a look at what we just did with Pakistan and India, we settled that whole thing, and I think I settled it through trade. We're doing a big deal with India, we're doing a big deal with Pakistan, and I said, what are you guys doing? You know, somebody had to be the last one to shoot, but the shooting was getting worse and worse, bigger and bigger, deeper and deeper into the countries, and we spoke to them, and I think I hate to say we got it settled, and then 2 days later, something happens, and they say it's Trump's fault, but Pakistan has got some excellent people and some really good, a great leader. And India is my friend, Modi. And he's a
mutual friend.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And I called them both, and we just did something good. We're trying to settle Russia, Ukraine. We spoke with President Putin for 2.5 hours the day before yesterday. I think we made a lot of progress, but that's a bloodbath. 5,000 people are being killed a week, 5,000 soldiers a week, not including people in cities and towns that are also being killed. So we're trying to help. And it doesn't affect us. It's not our people. It's not our soldiers. It's Ukraine and it's Russia. But if we can save 5,000 souls, we'll do it. You know, we're pretty good at it. But that's a bad situation. That is a really bad situation.
Well, you'd recall when President Zelensky was coming to South Africa, that's when I spoke to you.
That's right.
We both agreed that we need to push the peace message so that there can really be peace. And we've been involved in the Ukraine-Russia conflict for quite a while through my Minister of State Security here. We've been dealing with them, the exchange of children who were taken away, going through names and addresses and all that. So we've been invested in that whole process as well. And the moves that you are making are fully supported by us, because we would like to see the end of that war.
That's true. I called Zelensky, and they said, he's in South Africa. I said, what the hell is he doing in South Africa?
He was talking to us.
We got to speak. I said, that's a strange one. I said, what are you doing in South Africa?
Yes.
That's a strange one.
He's trying to make peace. We're taking him. You know, we were lucky because we had the great Nelson Mandela, who taught us how to create peace, to make peace. So we were imparting some of those lessons to him, some of those learnings, and I specifically mentioned to him that this is how Nelson Mandela taught us, that when you want to have a peace in a country, do it on an unconditional basis and sit down and talk. And that's precisely what I'm sure he's going to heed.
Well, we're going to see what happens with that one. It's there's a lot of hatred. There's a lot of death. It's a bloodbath.
It is.
I get the
unfortunately.
I get the satellite pictures of that field, of that killing field. You never saw anything like it in your life. It's horrible. It's a horrible thing that it goes on, but I think we've made big progress.
Sir, on the
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Gaza
No,
is
no,
another-
not you.
Is a bit-
Right here. He's from South Africa. Go ahead, please.
What are you expecting on the ICJ case? Are you expecting South Africa to drop that? Is that what you're trying to
On
reason?
which case?
The ICJ case against Israel?
Criminal justice.
International Criminal Court.
I don't expect anything, to be honest. I really don't. I don't know. It's they've got a case. There's a lot of anger there, tremendous anger. I don't expect anything. We'll see what happens. We'll have a ruling, and who knows what the ruling is going to mean. Yeah.
On that subject of Gaza, Mr. President, are you going to be speaking to Prime Minister Netanyahu about Israel's renewed offensive there? There's been a lot of concern from European countries. The Pope has expressed concern. Are you going to be asking Prime Minister Netanyahu to tone down the offensive in Gaza, to let more aid in?
Was that a question or a statement?
It's a question.
This guy's, you never change.
Mr. President, decide what will
Please.
it take from you for you to be convinced that there's no white genocide in South Africa?
Well, I can answer that for President. It's for him. I
I'd
seriously.
rather have him answer.
Sure, I'd rather answer. It will be.
Our president will respond to you.
Yeah, let me.
Thank you, Mr. President.
It will take President Trump listening to the voices of South Africans, some of whom are his good friends, like those who are here. When we have talks between us on around the quiet table, it will take President Trump to listen to them. I'm not going to be repeating what I've been saying. I would say if there was Afrikaner farmer genocide, I can bet you, including my Minister of Agriculture, he would not be with me. So it'll take him, President Trump, listening to their stories, to their perspective. That is the answer to your question.
But, Mr. President, I must say that we have, wait. We have thousands of stories talking about it.
Sure.
And we have documentaries, we have news stories. And that. Is Natalie here, somebody here to turn that? I could show you a couple of things. And it has to be responded to.
Yeah, sure.
We have, let me see the articles, please, if you would. And turn the lights down. Turn the lights down and just put this on. It's right behind you. Johan.
There's nothing this parliament can do. With or without you, people are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one. We don't care. We can do whatever you want to do. Who are you to tell us whether we can occupy land or not? We are going to occupy land. Yes. South Africa, occupy land. That's who we are. Honorable member, can withdraw my membership from this useless parliament. Honorable. Yes, honorable member. Must never be scared to kill. A revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because the killing is part of a revolutionary act. Shoot to kill. Yamaza. Kill the poor, the farmer. Kill the poor, the farmer. Brr, pa, pa, brr, pa, pa. To kill. Yamaza. Kill the poor, the farmer. Kill the poor, the farmer.
The mayor of DA in PE is a white man. So these people, when you want to hit them hard, go after a white man. They feel a terrible pain because you have touched a white man. Not because Mashaba and Soli will not be touched. They will be touched, don't worry. But we are starting with this whiteness. We are cutting the throat of whiteness. It's like
Shoot to kill. Yamaza. Kill the poor, the farmer. Kill the poor, the farmer. Brr, pa, pa, brr, pa. Shoot to kill. Yamaza. Kill the poor, the farmer. Kill the poor.
statute was not called for the killing of white people, at least for now. I can't guarantee the future.
Yeah, but I mean, you'd understand somebody watching that, especially as it gets shared on Twitter. They freak out. It sounds like a genocidal
who will expropriate land without compensation, whether they like it or not. If they object, they can seek refugee in America.
Now this is very bad. These are burial sites right here. Burial sites. Over 1,000 of white farmers, and those cars are lined up to pay love on a Sunday morning. Each one of those white things you see is a cross, and there's approximately 1,000 of them. They're all white farmers, the family of white farmers. And those cars aren't driving, they're stopped there to pay respects to their family member who's killed. And it's a terrible sight. I've never seen anything like it. Both sides of the road you have crosses. Those people were all killed.
Have they told you where that is, Mr. President? No, I'd like to know where that is, because this I've never seen. I don't. Okay.
I mean, it's in South Africa.
We need to find out. I don't know. I don't know. No. Okay.
Mr. President, the Pentagon announced that it would be accepting a Qatari jet to be used as Air Force One. Perhaps
What are you talking about?
Can we have a South Africa question, please? Mr. President,
the Pentagon's vote first.
What does this have to do with the Qatari jet? They're giving the United States Air Force a jet, okay? And it's a great thing. We're talking about a lot of other things. It's NBC trying to get off the subject of what you just saw. You are a real, you're a terrible reporter. Number one, you don't have what it takes to be a reporter. You're not smart enough. But for you to go into a subject about a jet that was given to the United States Air Force, which is a very nice thing. They also gave $5.1 trillion worth of investment in addition to the jet. Go back, you ought to go back to your studio at NBC, because Brian Roberts and the people that run that place, they ought to be investigated. They are so terrible the way you run that network, and you're a disgrace. No more questions from me. Go ahead.
No more questions from you, baby.
Go ahead, talk about that.
Please, may we have a South Africa
His name
question,
is Peter
Mr. President
something.
Trump?
He's a terrible
If they're
reporter.
committing genocide, why invite them to the White House? I'll be quiet. Sure, that's my question now.
Let's go.
Thank you so much, President Trump. Annika Larson from ENCA in South Africa. Thank you very much for hosting us. What would you like President Ramaphosa to do about the situation that we've just seen on the screen?
I don't know. Look, these are articles over the last few days. Death of people. Death. 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 Horrible death. Death. I don't know.
But you know that there are
Pick
black
anyone.
people who are
White
dying
South
the most.
Africans are fleeing because of the violence and racist laws. And this is all. I mean, I'll give these to you. So when you say what would I like to do, I don't know what to do. Look at this. White South African couple say that they were attacked violently.
President Trump, when will you go and see for yourself if it is
Well, I could do that. Look, here's burial sites all over the place. These are all white farmers that are being buried.
President Trump.
And he asks about a jet that was given.
My first question is about
We're not interested in the
You know, you are so bad. You're such a bad reporter.
If they're committing genocide, why invite them? Sir, if they are committing genocide, why invite the South Africans to the White House?
May I finish, please, President Trump? President Trump.
This is one after another. This family was wiped out. I'm just looking.
Can we get a report from President Trump? Can you give us your reaction to those videos, Mr. President?
President Trump, could you?
Well, I think the videos are so. No. When you look at the videos, I mean, how does it get worse? And these are people that are officials, and they're saying that kill the white farmer and take their land. That's what it is. And I have other friends in South Africa. I have people that left. One in particular that says you can't go there. He said they want to take your land. They take your land and they kill you. It's okay, and they say it's okay to do. Now we're going to talk about it. But this is a tremendous look. This is a story recent. These are all people that recently got killed.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it can get any worse. These are and you know, the men that you saw, the people that you saw in that movie, those are officials. Those are people that were in office. They had one march. They had a dance in your parliament, whatever you may call it, legislature.
Let me clarify that.
Yeah.
Let me clarify that, because what you saw, the speeches that were being made, one, that is not government policy. We have a multi-party democracy in South Africa that allows people to express themselves, political parties to adhere to various policies, and in many cases, or in some cases, those policies do not go along with government policy. Our government policy is completely against what he was saying, even in the parliament. And they're a small minority party, which is allowed to exist in terms of our constitution.
But you do allow them to take land.
No.
You do allow them to take land.
Nobody can take land.
And then when they take the land, they kill the white farmer. And when they kill the white farmer, nothing happens to them.
No, there is
nothing happens to them.
There is criminality in our country. People who do get killed, unfortunately, through criminal activity, are not only white people. Majority of them are black people. And we have now
the farmers are not black. The farmers are not black. I don't say that's good or bad, but the farmers are not black. And the people that are being killed in large numbers, and you saw all those grave sites, and those are people that loved ones going, I guess on a Sunday morning, they tell me, to pay respect to their loved ones that were killed. Their heads chopped off. They died violently. And, you know, I mean, we're here to talk about it, and I didn't know we'd get involved here. But I will say this, that if the news wasn't fake like NBC, which is fake news, totally, one of the worst, ABC, NBC, CBS, horrible. But if they weren't fake news like this jerk that we have here, if we had real reporters, they'd be covering it. But the fake news in this country doesn't talk about that. They don't want to talk about it. But now they have to talk about it. But they won't. This won't even be a subject. They'll have him talking about why did a country give a free, think of this, why did a country give an airplane to the United States Air Force? Okay? The United States, not to me, to the United States Air Force, so they could help us out, because we need an Air Force One until that's Air Force One, it's being built. 2 of them being built. But Boeing's a little bit late, unfortunately. So why did they give us a plane to the United States Air Force? That's what that idiot talks about after viewing a thing where thousands of people are dead.
I'm sorry, I don't have a plane to give you.
I wish you did. I take it. I would take it. If your country offered the United States Air Force a plane, I would take it.
Okay. But coming back to this issue, which I really would like us to talk about, and talk about it very calmly. We were taught by Nelson Mandela that whenever there are problems, people need to sit down around a table and talk about them.
Well, there are problems.
And this is precisely what we would also like to talk about, including, of course, trade matters, investment matters. So the issues that concern you as the United States.
Those are all recent. Those are all deaths.
Yeah, in many ways, I mean, one should say you are a partner of South Africa, and you are raising concerns, and these are concerns that we are willing to talk to you about. Let me just add quickly, you know, the criminality that we are experiencing in our country needs quite a lot of technological capability. And in one of our areas in South Africa, we're using US technology, which is able to, in many ways, identify where shootings are happening and all that. And I'd like to talk about that because there is support that we can get from you as the United States to help us deal with all these acts of criminality. And that is what I believe partnership is all about. And we are here as a partner so that we can help each other whenever there are challenges. So I'd like us to discuss it, and of course outside of the media, so that we sit down and have a really good discussion that will lead to good outcomes.
Are there any other further punitive measures that could be in place should you not be satisfied that South Africa is fixing some of the very bad things, in inverted commas, that you tweeted are happening?
Well, there are a lot of bad things happening in many countries, but this in particular has been very, very bad, and because of we're going to have the whole world watching in another short period of time because you have the G20, and that's a big deal. And it seems like, I want you to look good. I don't want you to look bad.
Very good.
But we have hundreds of people, thousands of people trying to come into our country because they feel they're going to be killed and their land is going to be confiscated. And you do have laws that were passed that gives you the right to confiscate land for no payment. You can take away land for no payment.
I want to clarify that because we have a constitution. Our constitution guarantees and protects the sanctity of tenure of land ownership. And that constitution protects all South Africans with regard to land ownership. However, we do say, because we've got to deal with the past, the government, and as your government also has the right to expropriate land for public use.
And you're doing that.
And we've never really gotten underway with that. And we are going to be doing
you're taking people's land away from them. And those people in many cases are being executed. They're being executed. And they happen to be white, and most of them happen to be farmers. Mm-hmm. And that's a tough situation. I don't know how you explain that. How do you explain that? They're taking people's land away, and in many cases those people are being executed, and in many cases it's not the government that's doing it, it's people that kill them and then take their land, and nothing happens to them. But we have thousands of people that want to come into our country. They're also going to Australia in a smaller number. But we have thousands of people that want to come into our country, and they're white farmers, and they feel that they're going to die in South Africa, and it's a bad thing. Yeah,
what can South Africa do? What concessions would you like to see them make to improve relations with the United States? Then I have one more for President Ramaphosa afterwards.
Well, we just spoke about, I got them a very, very complex machine, 150 of them. And I was asked by the president if he could help. Yes. And I did that. And, I have great feeling for all countries. I deal with all countries. But I have a great feeling for South Africa because I have friends. I have a couple of friends, a few friends here today. But I have many friends from South Africa. But many of those friends are not, they can't go back. I have Elon is from South Africa. I don't want to get Elon involved. That's all I have to do, get him into another thing. But Elon happens to be from South Africa. This is what Elon wanted. He actually came here on a different subject, sending rockets to Mars, okay? Yes. He likes that better. He likes that subject better. That's right. But Elon is from South Africa, and I don't want to talk to him about that. I don't think it's fair to him.
That's right.
But I will say that people are fleeing South Africa for their own safety. Their land is being confiscated, and in many cases they're being killed. And that scene of You see how many crosses they have. Those crosses, that's a dead person in every one of them. And those trucks or cars are paying their respects to all of those dead people on a Sunday morning. That's a rough thing to explain away. And the problem we have, and the way, a correct and a fair media exposes things. But we have a very corrupt media. They won't even report this. If this were the other way around, it would be the biggest story. Now, I will say apartheid, terrible. That was the biggest story. That was reported all the time. This is sort of the opposite of apartheid. What's happening now is never reported. Nobody knows about it. All we know is we're being inundated with people, with white farmers from South Africa. And it's a big problem. Marco Rubio was telling me he's never seen anything like it. The numbers of people that want to leave South Africa because they feel they're going to be dead very soon.
Yeah,
Yes, please.
I was going to say,
Brian,
if I could just ask you a question. 72% of farmers in your country are white. If they flee, do you feel that maybe the economy could collapse? You may not have a gap to fill in those people that need to replace those farmers.
I'd like my Minister of Agriculture, who is white, who comes from an opposition party to mine, who's joined my government at my invitation to address this very issue, including the question that you've just raised. John?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Yeah. And Mr. President, thank you for welcoming us to the White House. I would say we have a rural safety problem in South Africa, and I don't think anyone wants to candy coat that. And it requires a lot of effort to get on top of it. It's going to require more policing resources. It's going to require a different strategy to be able to deal with it. But certainly the majority of South Africa's commercial and smallholder farmers really do want to stay in South Africa and make it work. And I've just come from the largest agricultural show in the Southern Hemisphere with organized agriculture and farmers, and the majority of them want to stay. But they too have a memorial to those who've died as a result of farm attacks. And as the Minister of Agriculture, it is something that I'm particularly exercised with my colleagues at police and my colleagues in the justice cluster to start making farm attacks and stock theft a priority crime. And it affects all farmers in South Africa, particularly stock theft. It has a disproportionate effect on smallholder black farmers. I also want to just say this, that the two individuals that are in that video that you've seen are both leaders of opposition minority parties in South Africa. Umkhonto we Sizwe under Mr. Zuma and the economic freedom fighters under Mr. Malema. Now the reason that my party, the Democratic Alliance, which has been an opposition party for over 30 years, chose to join hands with Mr. Ramaphosa's party was precisely to keep those people out of power. We cannot have those people sitting in the union buildings making decisions. And that is why after 30 years of us exchanging barbs across the floor in Parliament and trying to get one over on each other, we've decided to join hands precisely to keep that lot out of government. Because the day they get in to the doors of the union buildings in South Africa or control of our Parliament, that's what you're going to see. And that is why this government, working together, needs the support of our allies around the world so that we can strengthen our hand, grow our economy, and shut the door forever on that rabble getting through the doors of the union buildings, because then South Africa's future would be...
So you denounced that type of language in the video that you saw?
Oh yes, we've always done so. As government, as my own party, we are completely opposed to that. We, in 1955, adopted a document which said South Africa belongs to all who live in it.
But why wouldn't you arrest that man? That man said, kill the white farmers, kill the white farmers. And then he danced, and he's dancing, and it's kill the white farmers. I'm not sure, but I think if somebody got up in Parliament and started saying kill a certain group of people, he would be arrested very quickly. That man is going all over South Africa, and that's not a small party. That was a stadium that holds 100,000 people, and I hardly saw an empty seat. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of representation. And those crosses, we have dead white people, dead white farmers, mostly. And you take a look at Australia, they're being inundated, and we're being inundated with people that want to get out. And Their farm is valueless. It's valueless. And they just want to get out with their life. And this is a very serious situation. And if we had a real news or real press or media, we don't have that because they won't talk about this because they're all guys like that idiot. But if we had a real press, it would be exposed. And you know, the beauty of exposing it is it's like
oh God, this guy is savage.
When it gets exposed, it'll get fixed. That's when it'll get fixed. But people don't talk about it. And I'll tell you who's talking about the thousands of people that are fleeing South Africa right now.
We discussed USAID and the devastating impact the cuts are having across the African continent.
Yeah, well, it's devastating, and hopefully a lot of people are going to start spending a lot of money. And I've talked to other nations. We want them to chip in and spend money too. And we've spent a lot. And it's a tremendous problem going on in many countries. A lot of problems going on. The United States always gets the request for money. Nobody else helps, as you know. Europe doesn't help. Europe hasn't given anything. All they do is sue our companies. You know, they sue Apple, and they sue all of our companies. Apple had to pay $17 billion on a nonsense lawsuit. Very unfair. But we're going to always be there to help.
Darling is showing rightly South African broadcasting. If this Afrikaner resettlement issue is resolved, you're going to go into a room after this, you guys are going to talk. If it is resolved, what is the potential for the future-looking relationship?
It's fantastic. It's got to be resolved. It should be resolved. It's a little bit bad when you see a stadium with 100,000 people in it because that means it's more than just a little movement. It's a pretty big movement in South Africa. So it has to be resolved. It'll be the end of the country if it's not resolved.
But is there potential for the relationship moving forward?
I hope so. That's why I'm here. I mean, I'm not here for my health. I'm here to see if we can do something. No, I'd like to see. I have friends. I can tell you, Ernie Els and Retief Goosen, they feel so strongly they wanted to be here on behalf of South Africa, not on behalf of me. And, you know, they said, can we be here for this? Because they love the country. Ernie, do you guys want to say a couple of words or anything? I hate to put you in this. This is tougher than sinking a 3-footer. Which they have, and they've sank many 3-footers.
Thank you, Mr. President. And thanks for the honor of being here. We've known each other a long time. We have spoken. You know, we're proud South Africans. I still have my South African passport. You know, we travel with this passport, you know, and I got my visa here. So, you know, but we want to see things get better in our home country. And that's the bottom line. It's been 35 years since the transition. President Ramaphosa was right in the middle of the transition time in 1990 and before that. So it's been 35 years of ANC government, and I know there's a lot of anger, you know, through the transition. There was also a lot of stuff happening in the apartheid days. You know, we grew up in the apartheid era, but I don't think two wrongs makes a right. You know, President Mandela, when he came out of prison for all that time, didn't come out with hatred, you know, and really unified our nation through sport. You know, we won the Rugby World Cup in '95.
4 times.
We won the African Nations Cup, soccer. You know, we won some majors as golfers and so forth. So what I'm trying to say is, you know, this has been a long time coming. That's why we really wanted to meet you, meet the administration, and see our way forward, because we still want to see our country flourish. You know, we've got some great things going on. Business is getting involved with government. Farmers are getting involved in local municipalities, trying to rebuild some of the infrastructure that's been decaying for a long time. So there's a lot of coexistence going on and help from a lot of areas. But I feel we need the US to push this thing through. We've got a great ally, if we can have the US. It's always been an ally of South Africa for a very long time. Even in the days of the war, up in Angola, you guys helped us. So very important for us to have your support and get the change we need.
Where did you do that well? He might have done that even better than he plays golf, which is almost impossible. Johan, please.
Sorry, Mr. President, if you had to wind all of those tapes properly, you will see I'm the biggest target of that rabble-rouser. Number one for over 10 years, Mr. Malema. In fact, the first time I met him, he was in the youth league with that gentleman, and look how he's changed.
Right.
We have too many deaths, but it's across the board. It's not only white farmers, it's across the board. And we need technological help. We need Starlink at every little police station. We need drones. I actually got drones donated for the peace parks to stop elephant and rhino poaching. And his predecessor stopped the importation because he said the United States would spy on us. I mean, US basics, the ridicule. So if you can help us. Remember, sir, you and I lived in New York in the 70s. We never thought New York could be what it became. 2 commissioners, a tough mayor. We need your help to stop this awful killing. But it's across the board. Ernie is right now building a house in George. I'm building 3 cottages for my grandchildren on a farm outside Graaff-Reinet. I often go to bed without locking the door. And we have a serious problem with illegal aliens who stream across the border. And if you really look at our statistics, a lot of these murders, firstly it's unemployment and illegal aliens. And then I met Vice President Varts many years ago at the Charlie Rose show. My wife loved his book. And she reminded me this morning that you emphasized the devastation that occurs when big companies leave towns and cities, and there's a culture of dependency that develops. I remember you discussing it. Now that's our problem. If we don't get our economy to grow, the culture of dependency and the lawlessness will increase. I've again been against apartheid all my life, and I'm their number 1 target. Please just Google my name and Malema. You'll see it, sir.
Yeah.
He marched on the
farm. But the crime is bad.
The crime is terrible, sir, but Mr. Steenhuisen won't admit to it, but he runs the Western Cape, where I live. And the biggest murder rate is in the Cape Flats. Gangs. We've got gang warfare. Like your M33 or whatever, these guys. We've got the equivalents there. But we need your help, sir. And we need Elon technology.
Well, one of the real areas of support is really in investments. We've got to grow our economy, because through growing the economy, we're then able to create more jobs. Because crime really thrives where there is inequality and unemployment. And that is one of the reasons that has brought us here, to improve our investment relations, our trade relations, so that we can preserve the number of jobs that your companies have created in South Africa. By virtue of what we export to you, we are able to create up to 500,000 jobs in the auto industry, in the agricultural industry, and a number of other industries, mining, where we export things to you. And also know that as South African companies invest here, you are also able to create jobs. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship. So our main real reason for being here is to foster trade and investment so that we are able to grow our economy with your support, and so that we are also able to address all these societal problems, because criminality thrives when people are unemployed, when they have no other hope to eke out a living. So that is what we need to resolve. And your support, your partnership with us is what is really going to give us a strong capability to move forward.
Excuse me, do you have anything to say? I mean, I don't want to leave you out. You know, the guy won 3 or 4 majors. 3 or 4?
No, only 2.
2. That's a lot. By the way, 2's a lot. A lot of tournaments you won too. Do you have anything to say?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. President Ramaphosa. I grew up in an area in South Africa that is a farmland area, Polokwane.
Yeah.
And there is some issues up there. Obviously, my dad was a property developer as well as a part-time farmer. And yeah, some of these buddy farmers got killed. The farm is still going. My brothers run it. But it's a constant battle with farms they're trying to burn the farms down to chase you away. So it is a concern to try and make a living as a farmer. And at the end of the day, without farmers, there's no food on the plate. So we need the farmers to produce the food.
Farming, right? He wouldn't do it. He wouldn't even want to do what you're doing, right? They love farming. They don't want to leave. But it's a struggle.
Yeah, and food and fresh water is the most important thing in life. Without those 2 things, you can't survive.
How is the water there?
The water is great. Obviously, all the water comes out of the borehole, out of ground for us down there. But yeah, it is a battle to get the water out sometimes when all the equipment gets stolen all the time that you're trying to get the water out.
So does your family and your brother, do they feel safe on the farm?
They live behind electric fences, try and be at night safe. But it is constant whenever you leave that something could happen. And
there's nowhere to live.
Both of them has been attacked in their houses. My mom's been attacked in the house when she was 80. So it is difficult. But the guys live a great life despite everything going on.
Something.
President Trump, I brought along the president of the largest trade union in our country, Ziggy Solosi, because she leads many workers, more than 1 million, 2 million workers, and maybe we should give her a chance to say something, because she's come all the way to join us.
Thank you very much, Mr. President Trump,
Thank you.
for having us, and President for extending the invitation to us as organized labor. And I must say that we are here to support the initiative that has been made by our government with business, of course, as organized labor. We've been coming to Washington on the AGOA trade relations in the previous regime, and I think at the center of it all, for me, it is exactly what Mr. Rupert has said, the importance of us growing the economy. We have always emphasized when we were here and kept on coming and negotiating on AGOA that the 600 US companies that are based in South Africa, as you said, President Ramaphosa, 500,000 jobs will be wiped out. We need more foreign direct investment in our country. We are not just talking about those that will lose employment, but we are talking about over 40% of people that are unemployed, that have no hope of ever finding a job. And we think that, correctly, as they have said, that we need to deal with the issue of porous borders in our country, so that everyone that comes in is documented. We also need to, and I would have thought that the minister would address the issue of land expropriation and how the policy works in South Africa. Recently, President, as you were preparing to come here on the news, in, I think it was in Natal, there was a handover of farms, and white farmers were saying, we are donating the land, but also there is a willing buyer, willing seller in South Africa. So there is no expropriation without compensation, but it is a willing buyer, willing seller. And that white farmer was even saying, President, that the government is even paying more in buying the land than what the land is worth of. And I think those are the realities, President, that we must say that we need to address, of course, but also the importance of agriculture linked to AGOA. People rely on it, and I think, as Retief have said, for survival and living. But lastly, for me, President, is also the issue of the crime statistics. There is no doubt about it that we are a violent nation, for a number of reasons, and we're not condoning anything. But also, if you go into the rural areas where black majority are, you would see women, elderly, being raped, being killed, being murdered. And these are black elderly women that would be found throat slits, raped multiple times, and all of that. And the problem in South Africa, it is not necessarily about race, but it is about crime. And we think that we are here to say, how do we, both nations, work together to reset, to really talk about investment, but also help us in how we can have the technology and everything that is needed, President, to really address the levels of crime that we have in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Genocide is a very strong word. I'm wondering if you've made up your mind as to whether you believe genocide is occurring in South Africa, or you still have doubts. And if you have made up your mind, why invite President Ramaphosa here today for this conversation?
Well, I haven't made up my mind. I hate to see it from the standpoint of South Africa, but also, I'm trying to save lives. I'm working with Russia and Ukraine. I don't have to do that. It's not our war. It was started by other people. It was helped along by our past administration, and it would have never happened if I were president. But I'm trying to save lives, no matter where. Rwanda, I have nothing to do with Rwanda and the Congo, but I felt I had a very talented person in this administration, and I sent him there, and he did an unbelievable job, I think. We're going to find out, but he's done the hardest part of the job. It should happen. If I can save lives, I want to save the lives. If it's in Africa, that's great. If it's in Europe, if it's wherever it may be. And it's a very small investment to do, believe me, compared to what the consequences are. So I hope we can do something. Look, I have so many friends. These two men, I have great admiration for them because I know what they do for a living. And that's a very hard living. Going from city to city, from country to country, and hitting a ball 350 yards like they do, and
better than you and I.
Getting the ball in the hole. It's a very tough, with lots of people watching, right?
Yes,
That's a very tough living. They're champions. I respect champions, and I respect very much. And I think the country is very lucky. They really wanted to be here.
That's true.
They could be elsewhere. They could be on a beautiful fairway someplace, and they wanted to be here. So.
My name is Yanda Mhobo from Newsroom Africa in South Africa. How important is it for the United States to be at our G20 summit in November, given the relationship between our two countries? You've just heard what has been said to you just now. Are you coming, and are you preparing to come?
So without the United States, the G20, just like the G7, used to be the G8, but brilliantly they threw Russia out. Would have been a lot better if Russia was in. A lot of people would say, oh, that's not it. Because if Russia was in, you probably wouldn't have this war. And if you had a different president, you wouldn't have the war either. But we have a G7. It's important that the United States is at both of them. I think without the United States, I really believe it's not very important. It's not the same meaning.
As I said to President Trump, the U.S. really originated the G20. And it's important that the United States continues to play a key role in the G20. And we are privileged to be the president of the G20. But we are even overjoyed that we are going to hand over to the United States, who are the originators, And for that reason, I expect the United States to continue playing the leadership role in the G20 together with other countries. And I've said when I initially spoke to President Trump on the phone, I want him to come to South Africa for a state visit, and I also want him to come and participate in the G20. And I want to gladly hand over to President Trump to take the leadership of the G20 forward in November.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
The legendary 45th, now the 47th President of the United States. We just heard him with the President of South Africa. And of course, the President is trying to say, you know what, have you seen what happened in South Africa? But the media wanted to change the dynamics. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Check this out. CNN is going to twist it for the liberals. Check it out.
What would you like President Ramaphosa to do about the situation that we've just seen on the screen?
I don't know. Look, these are articles over the last few days. Death of people. Death. Horrible death. Death. I don't know. To pick anyone, white South Africans are fleeing because of the violence and racist laws. And this is all.
We have a multi-party democracy in South Africa that allows people to express themselves, political parties to adhere to various policies, and in many cases, or in some cases, those policies do not go along with government policy. Our government policy is completely against what he was saying, even in the parliament. And they're a small minority party, which is allowed to exist in terms of our constitution.
But you do allow them to take land.
No.
You do allow them to take land.
Nobody can take land.
And then when they take the land, they kill the white farmer. And when they kill the white farmer, nothing happens to them.
No, there is
nothing happens to them.
There is criminality in our country. People who do get killed, unfortunately through criminal activity, are not only white people. Majority of them are black people. And we have now been utilizing.
The farmers are not black.
I
don't say that's good or bad, but the farmers are not black. And the people that are being killed in large numbers, and you saw all those grave sites, and those are people that loved ones going, I guess on a Sunday morning, they told me, to pay respect to their loved ones that were killed. Their heads chopped off. They died violently. And, you know, I mean, we're here to talk about it, and I didn't know we'd get involved here.
We've been tracking some high tensions at the White House as President Trump meets with his South African counterpart, President Cyril Ramaphosa. The face-to-face is happening just days after a group of white South Africans were granted refugee status in the United States, a highly controversial move.
That's right. And just moments ago, President Trump repeated an unverified claim that they have been subject to genocide, which South Africa vehemently denies. Let's get right to CNN's Kristen Holmes, who is at the White House.
We just saw that even South Africans are saying that they have violent problem. We heard South Africans say that, but CNN didn't hear that.
And Kristen, I know that you've been listening to this play out. Walk us through what happened.
Yeah, this is growing increasingly more and more tense. We saw that the South African president came here with a real charm offensive. He was complimenting Donald Trump, saying that he wanted to reset relations, but things have really taken a turn. Now, all of this is about what you just brought up, which is this claim from President Trump that there is white genocide in South Africa. It is about the fact that there are white Afrikaners that Trump says are being pushed out of their land and being killed, something that the South African government denies. Now, Donald Trump was asked by a reporter in the room, what would it take for you to change your opinion on this, for you to see things differently? And the president of South Africa interrupted him, saying, I'll take that one. I think what's going to help Donald Trump is talking to the delegation that I brought with me, that they will tell him that there is no white genocide in South Africa at this time. Part of the delegation there includes two world famous golfers, people who apparently, according to the South African president, Donald Trump asked to come along. Then, in what appears to be somewhat of an ambush because they were clearly prepared for it. The White House, Donald Trump asks them to dim the lights, and they play a video, which they say is a documentary or news clips that show that there is white genocide. Now, just moments ago, when you guys came on the air, there was an official from South Africa trying to explain what was being seen in that video, saying that these are members of an opposition party, that this is not the government that is calling for the death of white farmers or for the death of white Afrikaners in South Africa. But this is clearly growing more and more tense. And I can tell you, I mean, this was a man, the president of South Africa, who came prepared to court Donald Trump, but I don't think he came prepared for this. He knew exactly what to say in terms of trying to ingratiate himself with the president. He talked about how they brought him a book of all of his big golf courses, how he's been taking lessons on golfing because Donald Trump told him to, that he brought these two world famous golfers with him, saying that he thank you for what you did during COVID, all of the right things. And then we saw this situation start to escalate. Now, remember, this was being billed as a trade meeting, but we knew that this topic was going to come up. This is, as you said, just right after a group of 50 refugees, white South African farmers, were brought into the U.S. and granted that refugee status. And Donald Trump continues to say that we have thousands of people telling us that they are fleeing South Africa because of what he says is genocide. The White House was very prepared for this line of attack. It's not just the videos. I've been watching on social media as the rapid response team has been putting out article after article after article as this is going. Donald Trump was holding articles that he had printed out to show headlines that he said purported white genocide. Again, the government is saying there is no white genocide. There is overall, and there is no evidence of that we have either. This is an unsubstantiated claim. This all stems from this idea that the land is being seized away from white farmers, and that is why they have been granted refugee status to come into the country because they fear being killed as well. There was a question about that. Donald Trump kind of brushed that off as well, saying that anyone facing persecution could come to the U.S. and that they had welcomed everyone. But this is growing increasingly heated and increasingly tense after starting off with seemingly pleasantries. And this is not the first time we've seen this happening in these bilateral meetings in the Oval Office, where they start off, again, two people trying to have a discussion in front of the cameras, and then it has completely devolved into fighting. And again, you're now seeing other members of the delegation stepping in, saying that they want to clarify what's in the video. You have Donald Trump doubling down, tripling down on this idea. And it's still, as far as I can tell, I'm looking here, I think it is still going on right now. And this has been, I mean, it's been roughly 45 minutes of the...
What are you saying? What are you saying? You just heard a South African woman say there's violence in South Africa, not just to white South Africans, but to black South Africans as well. And they're asking for Trump's help. Okay, CNN.
But probably the most surprising and certainly not normal part of these kind of interaction was the bringing in of this video and playing it for the South African president to say almost a gotcha moment of here's the evidence against you.
Yeah, and apparently the president describing what was in the video, a series of white crosses, as having been grave sites, that was refuted by some of the African delegation in the room, suggesting that this was more of a political demonstration, as you outlined. Kristen Holmes from the White House will let you keep monitoring that event for us. Let's bring in CNN's Larry Madowo. Larry, you've obviously been covering South Africa for some time. Can you give us context to that video that the president played in the Oval Office? I understand that this was a political demonstration, not actual grave sites.
That was a lot to take in. Almost everything President Donald Trump said was inaccurate or immediately debunked. And showing these videos that are historical in nature and without context did make President Ramaphosa uncomfortable. He actually struggled to watch them. We have looked into the data and we have found no evidence of a white genocide in South Africa. Between April and December 2024, there were about just over 30 murders at farms in South Africa. Only 7 of them were of farmers. South Africa does not release crime statistics by race, but the farmers tend to be white. The workers at these farms tend to be black. So even South Africa's own data does not show any evidence of any white genocide that President Ramaphosa has tried to explain to President Trump. What President Trump has said increasingly is that their land is being seized from them and they're getting executed. And he showed that video of this 1,000 crosses. I've been covering South Africa for 15 years. I've lived and worked in South Africa. I know many South African friends. I spoke to President Ramaphosa last week, and he told me something that he repeated at that Oval Office meeting to President Trump, that we were taught at the feet of Nelson Mandela. If there's an issue, we talk about it and we agree. President Ramaphosa also told me last week that he'd explained this to President Trump, that when they have an issue, they discuss it. And that's why there's no evidence of this genocide that he's talking about. And South Africa, he said, is the only country in Africa where the colonizers came to stay and they've never driven them out. So all of these videos, the presentation that he made, the multimedia ambush that they've just presented with these videos and the printouts, and you can see the agriculture minister from South Africa, from the DA, that is the white majority party that has traditionally opposed the African National Congress party of President Ramaphosa. They're in a coalition government, and the agriculture minister is sitting there explaining that this is not true. What the videos show is Julius Malema, the far left opposition leader of South Africa. His party is called the Economic Freedom Fighters, and it also showed former President Jacob Zuma. What Julius Malema was singing, "Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer," was an anti-apartheid song from the struggle against white minority rule in South Africa. They've explained that this is not a literal attack, call to attack and kill the farmer, because of the historical nature of that. But it's been weaponized by groups in South Africa and increasingly by the MAGA right in the United States to essentially misrepresent what is going on in the country, Boris, Brianna.
Also of note, Larry, can you speak? We heard there, and he was just sort of in the forefront of the camera shot, the agriculture minister, because it seemed that President Ramaphosa was kind of trying to show up with some backup, which is one of his ministers who is white, who is not from the same party as him, John Steenhuisen. Talk a little bit about that, as he was saying that black farmers have been affected by violence as well, and that this is really part of a larger issue of violence. Murder rate, by the way, in South Africa multitudes the factor of what it is in the U.S., just as a reference point. Talk a little bit about that agriculture minister and what we heard.
Right, that agriculture minister, John Steenhuisen, who is from the Democratic Alliance, the opposition party that's in coalition with the President Ramaphosa's ANC party, he explicitly said that the reason why he joined President Ramaphosa's government is to make sure that these extremist elements within the South African political scene don't get into power. He's referring to Julius Malema and former President Jacob Zuma. But he's in this position is interesting because he has repeatedly supported President Ramaphosa's argument that there is no white genocide. Otherwise, he would not be in a government that was carrying out these seizing land from white farmers and executing them, as President Trump believes. And the fact that he's the agriculture minister is especially important because the majority of farmers in South Africa are white. They own the majority of the land. This is why it's a major political issue, because the black majority do not own a lot of the land in South Africa. And he, as a white Afrikaner, is the agriculture minister of South Africa and is telling President Trump and the press there that he has not seen any evidence of a white genocide in the country. And President Trump insists that it's not being reported. In my experience reporting in South Africa, I don't think it's possible that 1,000 farmers could have been killed and buried along the roadside, and there's thousands of cars paying respects without anybody noticing it. But that's what President Trump believes. I've been speaking to some South Africans watching this live, and they say this is AfriForum propaganda. AfriForum is considered a white nationalist group by the Southern Poverty Law Center, and everything that President Trump has been saying in the White House is word for word their talking points. So they've succeeded in presenting their grievances to the highest office in the land, and President Trump has put that before the President of South Africa.
And if you do look at some of the numbers that AfriForum itself has put out there, which is focusing on the deaths of white farmers, they're estimating it to be about 50 a year.
Ladies and gentlemen, the media is the real issue. How can you be from South
Mr.
Africa
President, the Pentagon announced
when you're saying there's no violence?
a Qatari jet to be used as Air Force One.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You know, you to get out of here. What does this have to do with the Qatari jet? They're giving the United States Air Force a jet, okay?
Oh, man.
And it's a great thing. We're talking about a lot of other things. It's NBC trying to get off the subject of what you just saw. You are a real, you're a terrible reporter. Number one, you don't have what it takes to be a reporter. You're not smart enough. But for you to go into a subject about a jet that was given to the United States Air Force, which is a very nice thing, they also gave $5.1 trillion worth of investment in addition to the jet. Go back, you ought to go back to your studio at NBC, because Brian Roberts and the people that run that place, they ought to be investigated. They are so terrible the way you run that network, and you're a disgrace. No more questions from you. Go ahead. Go ahead, talk about that. His name is Peter something. He's a terrible reporter. Quiet. Let's go.
Thank you so much, President Trump. Anna Larson from ENCA in South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Steve.
What would you like President Ramaphosa to do about the situation that we've just seen on the screen?
I don't know. Look, these are articles over the last few days. Death of people. Death. Horrible death. Death. I don't know. To pick anyone. White South Africans are fleeing because of the violence and racist laws. And this is all, I'll give these to you. So when you say, what would I like to do? I don't know what to do. Look at this. White South African couple say that they were attacked violently.
President Trump, when will you go and see for yourself if it is indeed true?
Well, I could do that. Look, here's burial sites all over the place. These are all white farmers that are being buried. And he asks about a jet that was given. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You are.
Even the South African president was laughing. Like, what sort of reporter is this? We're talking about important issues that concerns human lives, and you're talking about jets. Okay.
You are so bad. You're such a bad reporter. This is one after another. This family was wiped out. I'm just looking.
Can we get a response from President Ramaphosa?
Your reaction to those videos, Mr.
President Trump.
Well, I think the videos are so. No. When you look at the videos, how does it get worse? And these are people that are officials, and they're saying that kill the white farmer and take their land. That's what. And I have other friends in South Africa. I have people that left. One in particular that says you can't go there. He said they want to take your land. They take your land and they kill you. It's okay, and they say it's okay to do. Now we're going to talk about it. But this is a tremendous look. This is a story recent. These are all people that recently got killed.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it can get any worse. These are. And the men that you saw, the people that you saw in that movie, those are officials. Those are people that were in office. They had one march. They had a dance in your parliament, whatever you may call it, legislature.
Well, let me clarify that.
Yeah.
Let me clarify that, because what you saw, the speeches that were being made, one, that is not government policy. We have a multi-party democracy in South Africa that allows people to express themselves, political parties to adhere to various policies, and in many cases, or in some cases, those policies do not go along with government policy. Our government policy is completely against what he was saying, even in the parliament. And they're a small minority party, which is allowed to exist in terms of our constitution.
But you do allow them to take land. No. Do allow them to take land.
Nobody can
and then
take
when
land.
they take the land, they kill the white farmer. And when they kill the white farmer, nothing happens to them.
No, there is
nothing happens.
There is criminality in our country. People who do get.
I think we should play that part for the CNN reporters. He just said that there's criminality in our country. This is a South African president admitting to the fact that they have criminality in South Africa. Okay, CNN didn't watch that part.
Killed, unfortunately, through criminal activity are not only white people. Majority of them are black people. And we have now
the farmers are black. The farmers are not black. I don't say that's good or bad, but the farmers are not black. And the people that are being killed in large numbers, and you saw all those grave sites, and those are people that loved ones going, I guess on a Sunday morning, they told me, to pay respect to their loved ones that were killed. Their heads chopped off. They died violently. And, you know, I mean, we're here to talk about it, and I didn't know we'd get involved here. But I will say this, that if the news wasn't fake, like NBC, which is fake news, totally one of the worst, ABC, NBC, CBS, horrible. But if they weren't fake news like this jerk that we have here, if we had real reporters, they'd be covering it. But the fake news in this country doesn't talk about that. They don't want to talk about it, but now they have to talk about it. But they won't. This won't even be a subject. They'll have him talking about why did a country give a free, think of this, why did a country give an airplane to the United States Air Force? Okay, the United States, not to me, to the United States Air Force, so they could help us out, because we need an Air Force One until that's Air Force One, it's being built, 2 of them being built. But Boeing's a little bit late, unfortunately. So why did they give us a plane to the United States Air Force? That's what that idiot talks about after viewing a thing where thousands of people are dead.
I'm sorry, I don't have a plane to give you.
I wish you did. I'd take it. I would take it. If your country offered the United States Air Force a plane, I would take it.
Okay. But coming back to this issue, which I really would like us to talk about, and talk about it very calmly. We were taught by Nelson Mandela that whenever there are problems, people need to sit down around a table and talk about them.
Well, there are problems.
And this is precisely what we would also like to talk about, including, of course, trade matters, investment matters. So the issues that concern you as the United States.
Those are all recent. And those are all deaths.
Yeah, in many ways, I mean, one should say you are a partner of South Africa, and you are raising concerns, and these are concerns that we are willing to talk to you about. Let me just add quickly, you know, the criminality that we are experiencing.
Fact is, South Africa needs Starlink. They need Starlink in their police stations. They need Starlink. So they need Elon Musk. Elon Musk is a South African. He was born in South Africa. So they need Starlink. You think the South African president is just here by mistake? He's here to literally solicit for his people. He wants a better South Africa too. And he needs Starlink. And he needs dollars from the United States. They need dollars from the United States. So that's why you can sit here and take everything that Trump is saying. You have to take it. And you have to look into it. Because if you don't, you know Trump has Elon Musk on speed dial. You ain't getting no Starlink, I'll tell you that much.
In our country needs quite a lot of technological capability. And in one of our areas in South Africa, we're using US technology, which is able to, in many ways, identify where shootings are happening and all that. And I'd like to talk about that, because there is support that we can get from you as the United States to help us deal with all these acts of criminality. And that is what I believe partnership.
Exactly. You just heard him say, we need the United States to help us deal with this criminality. because I see people in the comment section saying they don't need Starlink. You just heard him say we need the United States. Everybody needs the United States.
It's all about. And we are here as a partner so that we can help each other whenever there are challenges. So I'd like us to discuss it, and of course outside of the media, so that we sit down and have a really good discussion that will lead to good outcome.
I'm Steve Ducey. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
Oh my goodness. All right. With that being said, this is probably the wildest conversation I've heard in a while, especially for the NBC reporter. He got the boot. For sure, he got the boot.
Let's bring in Joel Pollack, senior editor-at-large at Breitbart News, born in South Africa, studied at the University of Cape Town. Joel, welcome to you. I'm curious to get your take on what we just watched play out at the White House.
The South African delegation came prepared to lecture President Trump on why he was wrong about the discrimination and threats against white farmers and white South Africans generally. The president of South Africa, addressing Trump's claim of genocide, pointed out that there were 3 white South Africans in the room with him, including a member of his own government. Trump then put on the video that you just saw an excerpt of, and it is a video of a prominent South African leader, Julius Malema, who leads one of the major opposition parties, calling for the murder of farmers, chanting, "Kill the farmer, shoot to kill," being joined in that chant by stadiums full of supporters. And South Africa actually has laws against hate speech. Even in this country, where we don't have hate speech laws, that kind of speech would be considered incitement. But as Trump pointed out, nothing was being done about that. And South Africa has laws, including one recently signed by Cyril Ramaphosa himself, that allow the taking of property without compensation. There are also racially discriminatory laws that affect white South Africans and other minority groups within South Africa. So Trump showed the South African president to his face the evidence that the South African president was trying to deny with this nakedly racial appeal, and it was very effective.
Yeah. You know, at one part, so after this very dramatic video plays, and then, you know, they go back and forth over the elements of it, and you see the pushback from the South African president about what is that? You know, I'm not aware of this area with these white crosses, but as soon as this very dramatic video ended, Peter Alexander from NBC piped in, "Tell me about the Qatari jet. Are you going to accept it?" Which did happen today. But I'm curious what you thought, because you have so much background and commitment to South Africa, having grown up there. Were you a bit stunned that the press in the Oval Office just sort of wanted to fly right by this issue?
Well, there's that old saying, read the room. Everybody in the room, whether South African journalists or American journalists, everybody was hanging on every word coming from either of the 2 leaders, because that confrontation was the most important thing to happen to South Africa since apartheid ended 31 years ago. Trump was forcing a conversation about the progress South Africa has made or hasn't made. He was forcing a conversation about where U.S.-South Africa relations are. And in waltzes this other journalist with his question about a Qatari plane. He had some kind of assignment from his editor, and he was determined to try to get Trump's reaction. And he didn't care about the context. And everybody in the room, one senses, was irritated with him, not just Trump, the other journalists, the South African journalists. So Trump sent him back to the kids' table and let the adults continue talking.
I just want to play this quickly. This is Retief Goosen, who is one of the people who was brought in with the South African president. He's a golfer, and he was talking about his family's own experience. And he was brought with the South African president, but he, you know, really made a point that I think was contrary in many ways to what the South African president was trying to promote here. Watch this.
They live behind electric fences, you know, try and be at night safe. But it is constant whenever you leave that something could happen. And
there's nowhere to live.
You know, both of them has been attacked in their houses. My mom's been attacked in her house when she was 80. So it is difficult.
So let me ask you this. You know, I watched the lower thirds of the other networks, and they said, you know, Trump pushes false claims of genocide in South Africa. What is your take on this? How much of this is actually happening? How many people are being killed in these situations? What's the reality from your reporting?
South Africa has extremely high levels of violent crime that are growing worse, and that crime affects both black and white South Africans, as Johan Rupert, one of the South African businessmen in the room, pointed out. But there is also the separate issue of the targeting of white South Africans, especially Afrikaners, especially farmers. And many South Africans believe that it is a deliberate act to target those farmers, and they hear the rhetoric of Julius Malema, who Trump put on that video. By the way, in reaction to the meeting, Julius Malema posted statements in which he stood by his positions, and his party reiterated the chant, "Kill the farmer." Oh. You have a situation that will lend itself to genocide because this kind of incendiary rhetoric is being used to justify those farm killings, and that's what Trump is pointing to.
I just want to very quickly play this soundbite from Nelson Mandela on the day that he was inaugurated, freed from prison and inaugurated, and he later got heat from certain groups in South Africa for being too open to having a partnership with all of the different communities of the country. Here's what he said on that day.
We enter into a covenant that we shall build a society in which all South Africans, both black and white, will be able to walk tall without any fear in their hearts, assured of their inalienable right to human dignity. A rainbow nation at peace with itself and the world.
Thoughts on that, given where we are today?
That is the South Africa with which the United States has a good relationship, not the South Africa of corruption, crime, and racial incendiary rhetoric that pushes an agenda of radical redistribution. The woke ideas of racial redistribution are destroying the South African economy, just like they threaten to destroy our institutions over here. And you heard the pleas from those in the Oval Office, from Ernie Els, from others in the room. Please, we need American help to get the reforms through that are necessary for South Africa, not just to have good relations with the United States, but to save itself from economic collapse. And even though this was criticism from Trump against South Africa, it was the best thing to happen to South Africa since the end of apartheid.
Fascinating.
Here is a South African talking. Okay, this is a South African saying, you know what? We need help. South Africans need help. Oh, we don't need Starlink. You think because you're enjoying the internet for free, well, you pay for it here in the United States. You think everybody has internet worldwide? People don't even have electricity 24/7. When I say America is the greatest nation on earth, and I see some people in the comment section saying, no, America is not the greatest nation. What do you know about this thing called Earth? Some people are in the darkness, no power for days. So they need the United States to help them. This is the greatest thing to happen to South Africa since apartheid. So you look, you could argue with it, but truth is bitter, ladies and gentlemen. The truth is bitter. All right, back to Sleepy Joe. Well, I hope he feels better with this cancer he got.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shannon Bream, along with Rosanna Scotto, Harold Ford Jr., Jesse Waters, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. Okay, President Trump ripping Biden's handlers as we get shocking new revelations on the decline of the former president, including some details about those in his inner circle and how they shielded a frail president from scrutiny. President Trump coming in hot on this growing scandal, posting this, quote, Joe Biden was not for open borders. He never talked about open borders where criminals of all kinds, shapes, and sizes can flow into our country at will. It was the people that knew he was cognitively impaired and that took over the auto pen. They stole the presidency of the United States and put us in great danger. This is treason at the highest level, end quote. And now, one of the authors behind this new bombshell book is speaking out about a staged Biden town hall that was so bad, his campaign couldn't even use it.
This fake town hall was in order to film it so they could make it into campaign commercials. They filmed it in Delaware with supporters. But Joe Biden, at this point, this is the spring of 2024, Joe Biden's town hall, which was closed to press, was so bad that campaign officials determined that it was not usable for a campaign commercial. Some people say this was because Joe Biden was incoherent. He could not really articulate his thoughts. Some people just said, like, the lighting was bad. That was sort of the two points of view.
And if that wasn't shocking enough, Jake Tapper claims Hunter Biden was basically acting like the chief of staff.
Hunter was driving the decision making for the family in a way that he was almost like a chief of staff. I think he is provably, demonstrably unethical, sleazy, and prone to horrible decisions. I mean,
tell me how you really feel.
Well, I mean, I'm just look at the record. I mean, after his brother died, he cheated on his wife with his brother's widow and then got her addicted to crack.
Well, it wasn't just Hunter in charge. As one Biden insider put it, quote, 5 people were running the country, and Joe Biden was at best a senior member of the board. Okay, Jesse, I want to start off here. I've gotten through a lot of...
Jake Tapper. Libs are already going for Jake Tapper. They're saying, well, you betrayed us. You betrayed us, Jake. They're coming for Jake, ladies and gentlemen, because he's saying the facts. He's awoken now.
Of the book, but not all of it. But there's kind of this theme where people were so afraid about President Trump becoming president again that they were willing to kind of look the other way on this Biden stuff. But it ended up being a self-fulfilling prophecy because propping him up to the last minute gave them President Trump again.
For maybe 3 terms in a row, Shannon. I don't think that's a conspiracy. I'm going to vote again and again and again. So he couldn't get through a fake town hall and he couldn't get through debate prep, but they sent him out anyway and he got slaughtered. Permission to make an analogy?
Let's hear it.
This is like a quarterback who can't even make it through practice. Can't even make it through 7-on-7, Harold, non-contact. He's turning the ball over. He's forgetting the plays. He's limping around. And what do? They sent him out on Sunday, and he gets knocked unconscious on the first drive. Then what happens? You got to send it.
Oh, man. This is just hard to watch. How can you allow your husband to come out like this? Stumbling, almost falling. He's falling on stages, falling off stairs to the plane, falling off bikes, doesn't know where he's going, and you kept on saying he's the next choice to be the president of the United States. He's sharp. He's ready to go. Everybody knew his mental acuity wasn't there. But yet, liberals said he was better than the legend that changed the economy of New York in the 70s and 80s. They said this man was better than a man who signed the Abrams Accord, who signed in the First Step Act into law. Opportunity zones. This man struggling to walk was better than the 45th president of the United States. That's what liberals were saying. If Trump becomes the president of the United States, it's over for the United States. Remember what Hillary Clinton said in 2015? If Trump wins 2016, there would be a nuclear war. Because he's a baby. He doesn't know how to control himself. Guess what we're having? Peace around the world.
In the backup, Kamala Harris. Now, why don't they have a better backup? Well, because the GM never drafted a quarterback or never signed anybody in free agency to compete for the starting job. So what do you do in the offseason? You fire the GM. Who's the GM? Jill. That's who is calling the shots. Jill and his son Hunter. So the woman the president was sleeping with is running the country. And then his son, who's recovering from a crack addiction, is running the country. And he's filming a documentary during the whole thing. I cannot wait to see it. So Jake, this is where he's fake. He comes out now and he says Hunter Biden is a sleazy criminal with too much access to his pop. That's what I said. And when I said it, he called me cruel and a conspiracy theorist. So let me get this straight. The people who were wrong about Biden get book deals. What do the people who were right about Biden get? What do we get? I know.
What do we get?
I want an apology. And I want a written apology because I want to frame it and I want to put it on my wall. Greg knows I don't collect art, I collect apologies.
That is true.
So this is what they're saying they're doing the cover-up. All the people closest to Joe Biden were duped. The anchors who interviewed him in person, the politicians who met with him, the reporters who traveled with him on the plane were all duped. But the millions of Americans who were watching him on TV from their couches, they knew that he was shot. No. Everybody knew. They're just pretending to find out now with this book as an excuse while they cash in.
Well, and Harold, the book talks about a lot of people who have regrets that they didn't say something before, probably because they ended with this disaster in the election in the fall. But they had knowledge, and 200 plus people have talked to them now.
Commander-in-Chief.
It's a question now that a lot of people that are running for 2028, Democrats, are going to have to answer. And they're starting to be asked, what did you know and when? I mean, that's
good to be with you. Glad you're here. I'd say a couple things. First, the story's not getting any better. A lot of this, Jesse said very well, and Greg will say when he speaks, remind us as well as he should.
Thank you.
That there are many around this table who were saying these things for a while. It does strike me as a bit incredulous, if not insulting, to hear people whom were covering this now to say that they had these kind of opinions but weren't saying this.
Oh my God. Did he just kiss Joe Biden's hands? Wait, did he kiss Joe Biden's hands?
Insulting to hear people whom were covering this now to say that they had these kind of opinions but weren't saying this during.
I'm gone. Yeah, that's it. That's the last straw right there. He kissed Joe Biden's hands. Oh my goodness, it's over. These were the people that was leading the United States. Of course. What do you think Vladimir Putin was looking at? When he saw this, he said, you know what? Take everything. Take everything, okay? These are the people that are going to tell me no. You think when Putin saw this, man, look, he said, take it all.
It does strike me as a bit incredulous, if not insulting, to hear people whom were covering this now to say that they had these kind of opinions but weren't saying this during the campaign. They have every right to say that, but they should not be so sanctimonious about it. I don't know when we stop. I know that there's. I said I don't know when we stop talking about it. I know there's a U.S. senator who wants to do an investigation into the White House on this. I don't know what we are trying to get at, and if we're trying to get at something noble, I'm willing to say we should do it. But the president former president will have to live with this. Those around him will have to live with this. Even his cabinet member who said that 5 people were running the country. Why didn't they come forward? I mean, I think the question for me will be more so, why didn't they all come forward if they believe that he was not fit to be president, or they just believe that was he jealous, or that person jealous, he or she, that they were not in that room? Or were they saying it because they thought that the president couldn't run the country? But at some point, we should realize the American people recognize this. They rejected him and Kamala Harris and put back into the White House the person whom he beat 4 years earlier. So that's where I stand on it.
Well, and the book goes back to describe that there were people who were concerned as far back as 2015 that the loss of Beau was really debilitating to him. So, Greg, that begs the question, if they were concerned about him all those years ago, was the idea just to get him elected in 24 and then do the switcheroo with the vice president? Did they really think he could go another 4 years?
I don't know. I don't want an apology. I want money. I want 10%. I want 10% of Jake's book.
10% for the little guy.
Yeah, 10% to the. Very good. But you know what else I want?
What? The little guy.
I want the town hall tape.
Ooh.
Right? Let's release the town hall tape. Don't treat it like a Pamela Anderson sex tape where I got to spend days looking for it. Somebody's got it. I want it. And then maybe we'll discuss reparations. We need Biden reparations.
Yes. Reparations that Greg likes.
Exactly. Finally.
We found some.
I can't help but think that all this went to hell when Hunter quit doing crack. Things were great when he was on drugs, and then he stopped. Everything just fell apart. The truth is, the people actually running the country are guilty of identity theft. Every day for 4 years, these imposters took power that they weren't entitled to. You know, and you're right. It's not about these guys. These guys weren't duped. Meanwhile, Biden wasn't even competent enough to sign away his power of attorney. You know, they preferred to keep it that way. It was like they liked him docile, like a drugged sex slave, so they could have their way with the American people. About Hunter Biden, yeah, he's chief of staff. his staff. These journalists had a juicy story, cocaine in the White House, while Hunter is there. How could you not pursue that story? You got drugs, you got power, you got intrigue, you got sex, and yet the reporters didn't stop to put down their lattes. Nothing to see here. Let's move on. Hunter, yeah, now you say Hunter's the nexus of power, and there was a cover-up. You were there. You could have uncovered it, but no one, and no one was stopping you from doing that story except you. I think the big confession is this is about personal bias, and people are very, very embarrassed to admit their bias about Trump is what drove this story. And now I'm going to save you, Harold. I'm going to create your presidential campaign. Ooh. I'm going to get you elected. The biggest scandal in Democrat history is this, but it's also the solution to one problem. What is the Democrat Party lacking? They're lacking a lane. They don't have issues, they don't have leaders, but they lack a lane. Okay, so the one person, Harold Ford, who leads the fight to expose the secret 46, you know, the unelected coven that ran the country, will be the candidate. And the reason why is you cannot trust any other candidate because you will never be sure if that person will be president. How can you trust the Democrat Party if they nominate anybody who doesn't come out against this? Obviously, somebody got to them. And the Republicans can always say the same thing about the Democrat candidate. Who are you really getting? Are you sure that's going to be the president? But the Democrat right now who stands up and leads the fight to uncover the secret 46 will win back the Democrat Party's their trust, because you don't have any trust. This is the lane you are looking for, Harold Ford.
And maybe Dean Phillips as your VP pick, since he was one of the only ones out there willing to raise these questions. Rosanna, interesting nugget I saw in the book. Obviously, this was written before we heard about the president's cancer diagnosis, but there's a little tidbit in the book where it talks about the doctor that is treating him was so close to him. There are questions in the book about whether he was too close to objectively treat him in a more aggressive way. Not with respect to this cancer. Clearly, they didn't know anything about that when they're writing the book. But it raises questions about whether so many people so close to him just weren't able to do their jobs objectively.
Well, we're finding out House of Cards is nothing like the House of Biden, with Dr. Jill in the lead and Joe making special appearances. We now find out in this book, right, that she is the most powerful first lady in history, the defender. I don't have contacts in the White House under Joe Biden, but something got my attention. When Joe Biden and Dr. Jill went to Normandy last year, and they were there for the D-Day ceremonies, and Dr. Jill was back and forth on a plane, on a military plane, from Normandy to Wilmington for Hunter's trial, back to Normandy on our tax dollar, even though the Democratic Party said that they were going to repay what they would pay for a commercial flight. Listen, Jill was not just standing by her man, she was standing in for her man.
Damn. She was standing in for her man. All right, Liberals. Oh, this ain't for the Liberals. Wait, I gotta make the Liberals happy.
Well, we begin with new details regarding the effort by Biden's inner.
We gotta make the Liberals happy, okay? Free speech platform, everybody. Free speech platform. Here we go. Liberals. Here goes your leader.
More damning revelations tonight about the Biden inner circle's efforts to hide his decline, including a scene in which the campaign staged a fake town hall. Why? Well, to quell concerns about his age and ability to interact with people. Joining us in our fifth seat at the table is the co-author of Original Sin, President Biden's Decline, Its Cover-Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again. That is Alex Thompson. He's also a CNN political analyst and an Axios national political correspondent. And Alex, the fact of the fake town hall is not actually the worst part of the story that you report in the book.
Yes, other campaigns have used fake town halls. Now, I would say those town halls usually are in addition to real town halls. Joe Biden was doing neither. This fake town hall was in order to film it so they could make it into campaign commercials. They filmed it in Delaware with supporters. But Joe Biden, at this point, this is the spring of 2024, Joe Biden's town hall, which was closed to press, was so bad that campaign officials determined that it was not usable for a campaign commercial. So they took 90 minutes, 2 hours out of the president's day. They filmed an entire town hall. and they determined that it was not usable. Now, some people say this was because Joe Biden was incoherent. He could not really articulate his thoughts in a pithy or even semi-normal way. Some people just said like the lighting was bad. That was sort of the 2 points of view. But the point is, it shows how like what the campaign status was in the spring of 2024 when they were trying to deal with a candidate that wasn't a decline.
Wait, someone told you the lighting was bad?
That's one of the excuses.
You're saying that they spent millions of dollars to stage a town hall? Well, we didn't get the lighting right.
That was one of the excuses.
I mean, and this comes back to the question of how many people were aware of things like that, but said nothing. And in fact, perhaps publicly said quite the opposite, that Joe Biden was fine, that everything was great. He was perfectly capable of doing this job for another 4 years. So
Absolutely. I was at the Justice Department at the time when we released the Her report, and he was the entire White House infrastructure at the time was calling the report gratuitous and said that Rob Hur should have never called him a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. And every Democratic pundit, many reporters were out there saying that it was inappropriate for Rob Hur to say that. And the reality is the whole reason why he put that in is because it was his whole reason not to prosecute. So it's really infuriating to hear this happening in the spring of 2024 around the time that the Her report was released, and certain aspects in Alex and Jake's reporting really talk about the time frame being fall of 2023, whenever he did his interview with Rob Hur, as well as early 2024 when the release of the report. And so it's really frustrating, I think, as a Democratic Party, hearing now that they were lying to everybody. And not only were they lying to everybody, but they were bashing their own cabinet when it came to the Her report.
One of the top Biden aides is Tom Donilon, and I'll play a little bit from Tom in a minute. Or I'm sorry, Mike Donilon. I'll play a little bit from Mike in a little bit, what he said after the election. But the nugget that came out about him was that he was paid $4 million to be a part of Biden's campaign from basically February to November. And Jen O'Malley Dillon was the next highest paid person at $300,000 plus a bonus. How does something like that happen? And when you told people that this is what you found out, what was the reaction in the Biden world?
It happened because Biden insisted it was going to happen. When Mike Donilon went to the campaign in early 2024, there were obvious objections among Biden's inner circle and on the campaign of paying Mike Donilon $4 million. But the president was insistent, pay Mike what he wants. You have to remember, Mike Donilon's been with Joe Biden since 1981. And he insisted, and that was the way it was. And you said from February to November, Mike Donilon went back to the White House after Joe Biden
didn't even get that far.
Was no longer the nominee. And there was a lot of internal anger and frustration, and there still is about this.
Charles.
Well, that's so many things. Number one is, I think a lot of us are kind of shocked, and we're in the dark. I wrote a column about this is all kind of like made up, that they're trying to present him as a weaker candidate because of political reasons, and to find out later that that was not true, that I, as a journalist, was also part of that ecosystem of people questioning the motives, is really, really hard for a lot of people who did not, believe that Joe Biden's a good guy, but also just did not want this guy, right? That anything was better than Donald Trump, because even if Joe Biden is declining, he's not trying to destroy the country. Cannot say the same for the person who is now in the White House. And so that is, for a lot of us, I think, really hard pill to swallow. But I think you have to swallow. I think that is one of the things that I think separates people of honor, is that you can understand that new information and make a change. I think that is really important for a lot of Democrats to do, at the same time as saying anything but this guy who's in the White House right now.
Let me play Mike Donilon. He was asked at Harvard University about whether Joe Biden was cognitively impaired, and here was his response.
I watched him every day. There's this view out there, and you see it written as like it's fact. Oh, Biden was mentally impaired. I didn't see that. And I sat in a room with him for hours and hours. I don't know how much time any of those people spend with Biden.
Oh, really?
I know how much time I spent.
Oh, for real?
I know what I saw.
Oh, for real?
Alex, is he just lying?
Yeah.
Because you've detailed a lot of examples in this book where people around him saw him unable to carry out parts of the job in terms of understanding information, sitting in meetings, things like that. Is he just lying?
I don't know if he's lying to us people or if he's lying to himself. You know, I think in some ways this is a very human story. We've all had aging people, and people react to aging people they love in very different ways. Sometimes they realize, man, this person needs help, and sometimes they're a little bit in denial about it. And I think it's possible that this could be the case.
Is there a difference there, though? He specifically says the words mentally impaired. Is there a difference in your reporting between decline, an elderly decline, and a mental impairment? I think that is there a difference there? And if there is, I think it's significant to say that.
I mean, what are you even asking? This guy was the commander-in-chief, okay? This guy was the president of the United States, the leader of the free world. What's the difference between... Nobody cares, bro. Okay? This guy was leading the United States.
I mean, there were moments when there were members of his own cabinet that would have been concerned if a crisis had happened at that moment.
Right.
You know, is that impaired, or is that just him being a little out of it? I don't know.
Yes.
Alex, let me ask you this question. I haven't read the book, but I've seen the reporting. You guys talked to 200 plus people on the record. They were saying some staff members didn't have access to the president. Cabinet members for months didn't have access to the president. There was concern. You just stated if there was a national emergency, the president wasn't in the mental state to be able to potentially handle and make tough decisions. If all of that is true, then who was making decisions for the country?
Well, I'd say, the president, there's also the president and there's the presidency, right? And there is an infrastructure around the president that is making decisions at all times. Now, there are some decisions that always have to go up to the president. But I'm saying that in the immediate circle around that, on the national security side, you're talking Jake Sullivan, Anthony Blinken. On the political side, Mike Donilon and Steve Ricchetti. On the policy side, Bruce Reed. And then also just sort of on the schedule, personnel side.
Here's the conundrum for Democrats here. I get everything you're saying, Alex. I'm aware of that. When people vote for a president, they get their staffers, advisors are going to help do the job. They get that. But they also want to fundamentally know that the person that they voted for, no matter what happens at 2 a.m. call we always used to hear about, that this guy can take the call. And it's very clear from this book that Joe Biden couldn't take the call for an additional 4 years, and he probably should not have continued the remainder of his presidency.
Exactly. All right. Here goes the author, the book causing problems right now.
President Biden struggled at times to either recognize or remember the names of his own staff. It's all according to the new book, Original Sin. One of these instances happened even before Biden was president. Authors Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson reporting, and I quote from their book, during an 8-day grueling bus tour in Iowa.
Some conservatives are saying that Jake Tapper and this guy coming out right now, writing this book and showing Americans that the former president wasn't really there. Okay? He wasn't really there. Are they literally just positioning themselves for 2026 midterms? Or are they trying to say, you know what? We didn't know. Now we know. We're going to do better. What is this about? Is this for the midterms next year or 2028 presidential election?
December 2019, Biden gave his aides pause. While doing prep, he struggled to remember the name of longtime aide Mike Donilon. You know, he said, groping for it. His aides side-eyed one another. Donilon had worked with Biden since 1981. And that's all the way back in 2019, which is kind of to give you pause just thinking about this. But there were more instances, according to their book. In 2022, they write, standing in the outer oval with National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and Kate Bedingfield, his communications director, he couldn't come up with either of their names, according to one witness. Steve, he said to Sullivan. Steve, he continued, obviously struggling to recall Jake's name. He turned to Bedingfield. Press, he called her, as he beckoned them into the Oval Office. Sullivan says he doesn't recall this happening, but the book also says Biden didn't appear to recognize Jamie Harrison. Now, that's important in the context of Joe Biden because Biden had supported him to be DNC.
But if this happened in 2022, according to what she's saying in the book, where was this information during the election? Where was this information during the campaigns, during when Biden was saying, you need to debate me, Donald? I'll debate you twice. Where was this information? Now, Trump is the president of the United States. Liberals now say, well, we knew since 2022. Why didn't you say it to the world before the presidential election in 2024?
Chair. This reportedly happening at an event in 2023. Biden took Harrison's hand and just kept shaking it without saying anything. And this is all just the newest revelations in a book that everyone is talking about. The Wall Street Journal says it details a conspiracy in plain view. The Washington Post, Original Sin, indicts the cover-up of a steeply declining Joe Biden. And in the New York Times, a damning portrait of an enfeebled Biden protected by his inner circle. Out front now, CNN's Jake Tapper and Axios' Alex Thompson, the authors of Original Sin, President Biden's decline, its cover-up, and his disastrous choice to run again. And it is now formally out today. And it is a real pleasure to have you both here in person to be able to talk about this. Okay, so, I mean, just the examples, the latest ones that I just laid out from your book are stunning. You and Alex spoke to about 200 people for this book. And I know now, thinking about it, and now you're doing interviews about it, what stood out to you or surprised you the most in your reporting?
Well, the first thing is, after we started writing this book after the election, we were pitching it, and we were hoping that we'd get good stuff, but we didn't know, really. And the fact that we were able to talk to more than 200 people, mostly Democratic insiders, almost all of them after the election, was shocking, because there were just so many of them wanting to unburden themselves, wanting to get this off their chests after keeping this horrible secret for so long. And it's not like all of them knew all of it, right? People knew little pieces of it. And I think that in itself was shocking. But then if I had to just pick one scoop from the book, I think ultimately the moment that I keep thinking about is Senator Bennett of Colorado saying that after he leaves the White House at an immigration event in June 2024, and Biden's having like a really rough time, he leaves and thinks like, no wonder our immigration policy is such a mess. This guy cannot manage the portfolio. And I think that was a real shock to me.
To see that what it could affect.
The policy implications of it, yeah.
So I would just one thing to add is all those examples you did, those are actually a fraction of actually what we had. We actually just had to cut them down because it became repetitive. The number of people that
so
Joe
this is a fraction of what you
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
We handed that book, we handed the book in about 20,000 additional words. We had to get it down to 85,000 to meet the production schedule. So we cut
25%. Well,
I mean, whatever. I'm not
like
75.
I'm just saying that's a lot that you have.
And so many people that had known Joe Biden for so long recounted experiences, especially by the end of 2023, where they would go up to him and then they would see, in their words, sort of just this vacant stare, and they would say hi, and they just, in their heads, they were like, I don't think he remembers me.
Yeah. All right. So, Alex, how people couldn't see this, and you guys talk about that when you say people knew little bits and pieces of it, but your book revisits this, how people, couldn't see it in front of them. And you write about Jill Biden. You write, one person from Biden's orbit asked, I feel anger at Jill. How do you not recognize that the person you live with is in decline? And now this is a question.
So now they're blaming Jill Biden. Throw Jill under the bus. Okay. This is the thing I don't like about liberals. They throw their people under the bus real fast and quick.
She knew?
I think intuitively she knew, and you can tell that by the way that she behaves, right? I mean, you can see it the way, even in the View interview 2 weeks ago, the way that she would jump in, right, and help him with his answers. And that's not new. She'd been doing that increasingly for the last 2 or 3 years. I don't know if she necessarily realized what she was doing, but by her actions, she knew that he was not the same and needed someone to help pick up the slack.
So, Jake, the cancer diagnosis is coming 2 days before the book comes out. And I know there are some who think that that was to detract from your book or take away from it. There's those theories out there. In the book, though, you talk about how the Bidens struggled with transparency on health, and specifically with Beau Biden's cancer. So I'll read that excerpt. You write, Beau's cancer treatment also demonstrated the Bidens' capacity for denial and the lengths they would go to avoid transparency about health issues. Beau would remain the sitting Attorney General of Delaware for the entirety of 2014, even as his family secretly flew him all over the country for a variety of experimental treatments. Beau's wife, Hallie, told people she didn't understand why they had to keep his illness a secret. Making it public would have led people to rally around the family, but both Biden and Beau opposed disclosure.
Let me just say, I knew Beau, and that's a huge loss. He's a really good guy, and it's heartbreaking that we lost him as a country. But that said, like, this is a pattern with this family. They do not tell the truth. They do not disclose when it comes to especially health issues. But beyond that, a person close to the family told us this is internally almost like a family motto. The way they put it is in the family, it's going to sound crass, it's not my terminology, don't call a fat person fat. It means don't acknowledge ugly truths. And this person close to the family said, this is a family motto in terms of how they live. Don't acknowledge that Beau is dying. Don't acknowledge that Hunter has a serious addiction problem. Don't acknowledge that Joe is deteriorating. And it's part of how they live.
So, you know, when people say, Alex, and there was this conspiracy among those close to him, right, that they were going to prop him up and get him through this election. I mean, is that a word that you think is fair to use?
I think on the back cover, we say, well, let the facts speak for themselves. And the truth is that while some of these things may have begun innocently enough, you know, just trying to make your principal look good and realizing that there are some things he's not as good at anymore. But by the time you get to late 2023 especially, it's clear that he may not only that he is definitely, in the words of many senior administration officials, not up to this job for 4 more years, but he may not even be up to that job now. And I think that's where you get to a point where you're not helping your principal and you sort of are losing sight of the bigger, you're part of something bigger than just helping Joe Biden.
All right, so it's an incredibly reported book. You have, and I don't know if you expected this, maybe you did a little bit, but maybe not to the extreme that it has occurred. You have come, I see the look on your face, you know where I'm going. You have come under withering criticism.
I'm not actually withering, but yes.
You are not withering, but the criticism itself is attempting to wither you.
The criticism intends to wither, yes.
So President Biden's granddaughter, Naomi, she kind of, I think this summarizes a bit. She says the book relies on an unnamed, anonymous sources pushing a self-serving false narrative that absolves them of any responsibility for our current national nightmare. There are real stories to be told. One day they will be. I suspect history will reward the truth. You know, there's some saying you're doing this to make money. Others saying...
I hope history respects the truth.
I hope so. But I want to give you a chance because you're both Washington insiders in the sense you live there, you know it. And there are people who say, come on, Jake Tapper, you had to have known. What do you say to them?
I say that I knew what we all knew, which was I saw him deteriorating in front of the cameras, like in the stuff that was public. But I didn't know anything more than that. I knew that he was okay in the interview I did in 2020 and old, but still with it in the interview I did in 2022. But no, I didn't. I didn't know more.
Which is the same impression, by the way, I had in June 2024 with him. I mean, it's just
old,
consistent.
but okay. But I didn't know about all these horrible moments. The reason why the debate was so shocking is because that was a president who is non-functioning. Not a president who had a gaffe, not a president who tripped on his stairs, a president who is non-functioning and was basically non-functioning for 90 minutes to different degrees. So I think that is why it's so shocking. And I think the reason why there's such interest in this book is because people want to know what really happened. As for Naomi, we know and we report in the book that the Biden family is very close and they stick together. And I don't begrudge her standing up for her dad and her grandfather. But I will say we stand by our book. And we do hope that history does reward the truth.
And I hope that there will be, then you get the sequel with the other 25%. Okay? All right. Thank you both. And congratulations on incredible work and
Thanks,
all
Aaron.
that it took to do this. All right. Thank you both so much.
Critical meeting is underway at the White House. President Trump hosting members of the House Freedom Caucus who are still a no when it comes to the so-called Big Beautiful Bill to advance Trump's sweeping agenda. Those holdouts asking for more time and standing in the way of Trump's desire to see that bill passed tonight.
I don't think it can be done today. I mean, the runway is short today. We're going to work with the president today. We're going to work with our colleagues to deliver. but there's a long way to go. There's some kind of belief in Washington, D.C. that once today comes and goes, that this cannot be fixed. This is a completely arbitrary deadline set by people here to force people into a corner to make bad decisions.
The two biggest sticking points, Medicaid and clean energy. The hardliners want to see bigger cuts to what they say is fraud, waste, and abuse in Medicaid, and they want to see all funding for clean energy programs stripped from the bill. Now, a source inside the administration telling CNN that the White House previously presented the Freedom Caucus with a set of policy options, but going into today's meeting, there was still no deal. Right now, the Dow closing down now, as you see right here, more than 800 points. That's just shy of 2%. The market's concerned over estimates from the Congressional Budget Office that says that this bill will add $2.3 trillion to the deficit over the next 10 years. And that's a concern that many Republicans, even those who plan to vote for the bill, are sharing.
My concern about the deficit and the debt is tremendous. This bill in its entirety, the way it was written, we would go from 36 trillion now in debt to 56 trillion minimum in 10 years.
Currently, the bill spends more money than the status quo. I mean, so it doesn't actually help deficits, it actually hurts the deficits.
I'm a deficit hawk. I'm not happy with this bill, but it's probably the best we're going to get right now.
Yeah, and the CBO actually projecting nearly $4 trillion to the deficit over 10 years. My panel is here along with CNN's Manu Raju. He is live on Capitol Hill. Manu, you talked with the speaker just before this meeting. Where did things stand at this hour?
Yeah, the speaker is still pressing ahead, and the pressure campaign is on in the hopes that these members who are demanding more time ultimately will bend to Donald Trump's will and demand and get behind their push to pass this out of the House as soon as tonight. That was a message from Speaker Johnson and his chief deputy, the House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, as they left for the White House, indicating they still plan to press ahead, to keep to their push to try to get this bill out of the House before Memorial Day. And when I asked the Speaker if he would give the hardliners more time to negotiate as they've been demanding, he indicated it was time to vote.
Are you going to put this bill on the floor tonight, or are you going to give the Freedom Caucus more time like they demanded?
Look, we're going to have a discussion at the White House about that. We're trying to get the bill in its best possible form, and we're trying to meet our deadline for the votes. The president's called for it. We've been saying this for many months, that we will do it before Memorial Day, and I intend to hold the discussion.
We've been continuing to work through issues, but we also have known that we got to keep the bill moving because there's a lot more steps in this process. I mean, the Senate, of course, has to go and do their work. You've got other things like the debt ceiling in the bill that do have timelines.
So you're going to go tonight. That's your intention.
We're moving forward with the vote.
But it's going to require a lot of those holdouts to change their positions and get on board. Remember, only 3 Republican defections. That's all that Johnson can afford to get this over the finish line. And he's managed to placate concerns from the more centrist wing of the Republican conference, cutting deals on a number of issues, including the amount that people can deduct on state and local taxes. But that deal that he cut, mainly with those Northeast Republicans, New York Republicans, that caused anger on the right because it would increase the price tag. But the calculation of the leadership was cut a deal with the moderates and hope the conservatives bend to what Donald Trump is demanding. The question, though, is will they do that in this meeting now? It's been going on for about an hour. Pamela.
All right, Manu Raju will be tracking that meeting at the White House. Thank you so much. My panel joins me now, CNN political analyst and White House correspondent for the New York Times, Zolan Kano-Youngs, CNN political commentator Jonah Goldberg, Democratic strategist Adrian Elrod, and CNN senior political commentator Scott Jennings. All right, so here we have this meeting at the White House with the GOP holdouts. Johnson wants the vote today. Clearly, that doesn't seem to be happening. Where do you see this going, Scott?
We'll see. They may get there. I mean, it's intense when you put members of Congress into the White House and get the President of the United States looking them in the eye and saying, do you want to be the Republican that goes home and tells your constituents that you were the person that stopped the America First agenda? Because I'm sure that's the conversation that's happening right now. So I have optimism, and I think the Speaker's office, from what I can tell, still has optimism that they might get this done here before they leave for the weekend. I will just say, whatever they do, it still has to go tangle with the Senate. You know, there's two parties in Washington, the House and the Senate, and one party will finish and then the other party will take it up, and we'll be having these conversations all summer. But getting over this hurdle to show the Republicans that put all these people in office some progress is a big political deal for the Republican Party.
Yeah, and just in terms of the timeline, you heard Andy Harris today, sort of the chairman of the Freedom Caucus, come out and say, look, this could be another 10 days until we vote on this. You heard Representative Chip Roy say we have a long way to go. Again, this was before their meeting with President Trump at the White House. That, of course, could change things. I want to listen to this sound from Congressman Harris about this bill.
This bill actually got worse overnight. There is no way it passes today. And as I've said all along, we may need a couple of weeks to iron everything out, but it's not going anywhere today.
What is the significance of that, the longer that this goes on, Jonah?
But the problem is the longer these things go on, the harder it gets to get them passed, right? So I think that's part of the sort of pull the Band-Aid, get this over with, kick it to the Senate. Look, my priors have been from the beginning, eventually something passes, because for exactly the argument that Scott's making, which is that the stakes for Republicans are so much worse if it doesn't. So eventually, who knows what deals are going to be made and all that kind of stuff. Like, as a fiscal conservative, I think this whole thing is a hate crime. But it's going to pass, and then the Senate is going to go nuts with it and change it in ways that are completely going to overturn what the House agreed to, and then you're going to have this reconciliation thing.
She's the best.
So this is going to be something we're going to be talking about on here all summer long.
Let's talk about the fiscal conservatism, though, because the CBO came out. That's the Congressional Budget Office. It's nonpartisan. It says this bill would force cuts to Medicare, will take from the poor and give to the rich. Nearly 9 million people will lose access to health insurance. It will increase the deficit by nearly $4 trillion. That is what they are estimating. I mean, you have to ask about Republicans and being willing to run on that next year.
Sure, you have, one faction that's obviously concerned about the fiscal nature of this and how much it'll cost. But you have also, conservatives that are also worried about cuts to the social safety net and programs like Medicaid and Medicare, and the political backlash that will come with those cuts. Those are programs that many of the president's own supporters also rely on here. So you do have those nerves. But this whole scenario, we're talking about the timing of this when the White House has also made clear that this and the passage of this bill, the president views it almost as a loyalty test here. You saw him say yesterday, look, if you don't want to support this, you might not be a Republican much anymore. There was an OMB, Office of Management and Budget statement that also used the word betrayal as well. This is much stronger than just a message of him saying, how are you going to answer your constituents? He is making clear that he sees the actions of Republicans in Congress here as a real measure of their loyalty to the White House and to him.
Yeah, I mean, you saw what he said about Rep. Massey, who's a no on this, who clearly isn't going to change his mind, that he should be voted out of office, basically, is what he said. And we're also seeing a little bit about how Republicans will message this if this does not pass the House. Adrian, Rep. Barr from my home state of Kentucky was on CNN earlier today, and here's what he said.
For the life of me, I don't know why anyone, Democrat or the grandstanders, would vote against this bill. I think it's political suicide. Voting against this bill is voting for a $4 trillion tax increase. It's voting for increases on taxes on middle-income Americans. It's voting for tax increases on tips, tax increases on overtime.
What do you say to that?
Well, look, I don't understand if you are one of the 12 to 20 or so vulnerable Republicans that, won in a very marginal district this last time around, how you can actually go home, look your constituents in the eye, many of whom, to the point you made earlier, are benefit from these social safety net programs, benefit from Medicaid, benefit from Social Security, and say, I voted for the largest reduction in Medicaid in the history since the program has been incepted. So how do you actually go home to do that? And I will tell you this, Scott, Democrats will remember there will be a lot of money spent in these districts for Republicans who voted for this bill, making sure that every single one of their constituents is aware of the cuts that they made to their programs and how they are actually affecting their lives adversely.
I have no doubt that Democrats will spend money complaining about this, because anything that we take away from illegal aliens, Democrats go insane.
We're not talking about
So
immigration. We're talking about safety.
No, we're talking about illegal aliens
programs
being kicked off of Medicaid, and we're talking about able-bodied people needing to show some kind of work product here. That's what we're talking about in this program. It's a massive program. And it costs a lot of money, and there's, I think,
And
even
it's
according
$4
to the
trillion added to the debt.
according to the
courtesy of
CBO,
this
like
bill?
$500 billion of possible waste, fraud, and abuse in this program. There are ways to cut this that doesn't impact a single person who actually needs it. And I would be more than happy.
This bill is not doing that.
I would be more than
this
happy
bill
to go
is not
home
doing that.
and run a campaign and say, we took this away from illegal aliens so we could shore it up for you.
But
a
that's
message
not what this
anybody
bill
can-
does. That's not what
it's
this bill
exact-
does.
it's exactly what it
immigrants.
does.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. All right, with that being said, instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself. Believe in your dreams. And believe
Complaining about this because anything that we take
in Almighty God. Okay? Shout out to the veterans. Shout out to the military members. You protect our homeland. Shout out to the policemen as well. And fathers, take care of your kids. I know I always say it every time, but of course, I know you got to do a lot of work to pay the bills, to do all the stuff. I get it, but spend some time with your kid. Love your kids. Let them know they matter to you. And with that being said, shout out to the moderators, Mr. Booski. Shout out to Zara's Garden, C. Shelley. Shout out to our members, Luke the Goat, Ellie Ringmaster. Shout out to everybody tuned in right now. You guys are the best. Shout out to Derek. Shout out to everybody, man. Jet. Shout out to every one of you guys for tuning in. Terry. Derek, if I didn't say your name, I'm saying your name again. Jet. Everybody, man. Thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel. Double tap your screen. Also, we have memberships. It is $4.99. Support the channel. It is free. It is a free speech platform. Okay, free speech platform. All right, we don't block anybody. Liberals, conservative, you're free to come in here. All right. And with that being said, it is your boy Genesis, and I am signing out. Love you guys. God bless you. God bless America.